This customer is not a gearhead, but they've got the perfect plan to get this thing on the road and keep it on the road for years to come. Let's get started. This is a 1984 Mercedes-Benz 300D. It's actually a model just like this is how I met Hoovie from Hoovie's Garage. It was a 1984 Mercedes 240D. It wasn't the 300D, it wasn't turbo, but basically otherwise was identical to this style of car, a W123. I've been on the inside and out of these. I know them pretty well. A lot better than even some of the brand newer ones. This one has 138,000 miles. And normally I would tell you guys never buy a German car over 100,000 miles. This is a different story. These older ones are literally bulletproof. In these 80s, early 90s years, they're really, really good. There's taxi cabs that have known to use these vehicles all over the world to get 1 million or more miles. Some of them have 2 million miles on the stock engine. This is back when Mercedes really designed something to last. It wasn't about sales figures and max profit. It was about building a good product. These things, when they're fixed up, the price is just constantly increasing. There's some on the West Coast that are in perfect shape for $30,000 and $40,000. So if you can find one for $5,000, $8,000, there's quite a lot of room there that you could put some money into the thing and still be worth what you got into it. That's kind of what the customer's doing here. They know it's going to be expensive. They told us up front, I'm really not so much concerned with the cost. Here's my list of things I want to do. Let's get a plan together. He doesn't want to do it all at once. He wants to get a plan together of kind of what's the worst, what's the middle of the road, and what can be done later in the future. And over the next 2 or 3 years, he'll bring it back and we'll tackle more until he finally has it sorted out. He'll have quite a bit of money into this. But as I stated, he already knows that's going to happen. Let's take a look around this 300D. I always really liked the front of these W123 chassis. They have a really cool look. I know they have Euro lights that don't have the circular US headlights, but I actually prefer the circular ones. I really like them. Every inch of this car is just very, very classy. It's not flashy, it's not in your face. It's just very well executed and very well done. Here at the rear it has the quintessential Mercedes-Benz look. You can see the taillights of these cars from many different models of these year ranges, and all over the world people can know that's a Mercedes-Benz. The paint is fair on this. On the roof it actually has some serious fading going on. That'll be tackled at a paint shop. We don't do that here. But these wheels are called the Bundt cake pan wheels. It looks like something you could cook a Bundt cake in. They're actually very highly sought after to find really nice ones. But there's no serious dents or no serious rust other than some paint correction here or there. It's pretty good shape. Let's go ahead and hop under the hood. I've had fun in the past with people working for me and say, how do you open the hood on this? And I tell them, pull the tongue. On a Bentley you push the B, but on these you pull the tongue. Like this. You see the little tongue? It stuck its tongue out at you, then you pull it. And that's how you get in there. Have you ever noticed so much of life is about protecting your valuables and assets? I know how to keep a car protected to make sure it doesn't break down, but when it comes to the digital world, I need help. There are so many fakes and frauds out there. Every day we get phishing emails just preying on us to click on them and share our personal information. I get so tired of sorting the real from the fake. That's where Aura steps in, the sponsor of today's video. They monitor your digital footprint 24/7 and alert you of any problems in real time. One of the features I love is their data broker opt-out service. Aura helps remove your personal information from data brokers and people search sites that can sell your info to identity thieves and scammers. This means fewer spam calls and text and more peace of mind. Aura also offers financial fraud protection, VPN services, antivirus protection, and a password manager. Plus, every adult on the account gets $1 million in identity theft insurance to help cover eligible losses and fees, with a total of $5 million in coverage. And I get all of this on one app at one affordable price. I'm not leaving myself and my family vulnerable to data breaches and brokers. And if you don't want to either, you can go to aura.com/carwizard to try 2 weeks for free. That'll be enough time for Aura to find out if any of your personal data is exposed. Now back to this 300D. This is one of the world's most bulletproof engines all over the world. It's the OM617 from Mercedes. The car that I purchased that I met Hoovie through was an OM16 equipped engine, which is the 4-cylinder non-turbo version. But this one's a 617, which has a turbo. They both have similar issues or common failures, but I know my way around these pretty good. Let's take a look at this thing. Here you can see it has 5 injectors. It's a 5-cylinder, inline 5. Some of the common issues are these fuel return lines will start leaking. This one's already starting to do it. As you can see, someone's already plugged off a vacuum line. They are known for vacuum leaks and vacuum issues all over the car.
That is an interesting tool they have used there too.
Yes, a Golf T. And here's another Golf T down here. So some things have broken and been plugged off. They also like to leak fuel here at this copper washer around this bolt, the fuel filter area. This is cruise control. They like to fail. It's very likely this one doesn't even work. It's a little arm that operates the throttle linkage. Overall, as far as the core of the engine, these things run forever and ever and ever. With proper valve adjustments and all the proper services, these things just go and go and go. Really good engines. One thing that's different compared to today's diesels, you see a lot of hard steel lines going to each individual cylinder, and it's indirect injection. There's really no computers. There's no computers at all controlling anything on this. It's all old school IDI is what it's called, diesel technology. They're not the best efficiency, they're not the best of power, but they are very, very reliable. I think these had 70 or 80 horsepower range, somewhere in that range. Not a whole lot of power, but enough to get on the highway and do what you're supposed to do. The fuel mileage in the 20s, somewhere around in there. This one runs and drives and starts and does everything it's supposed to. There's one last thing I want to show you that can also go bad, is the glow plug controller. Under this cap on the wheel well area here, there's the glow plug controller. There's actually a fuse. This little strip of metal can blow, and it won't start in a cold day. You just put a new fuse in there and be back in business. But those can go bad, and it'll have cold start issues. So let's let Mrs. Wizard show you guys around the interior. They have really cool styling in the interior.
Okay, those of you guys that love old Mercedes, just imagine, breathe in. Yeah, this has that classic Mercedes smell. No other car has this smell as an old Mercedes, but there you can see in our gauge cluster, it has 136,835 miles. Love the gauge cluster, very classic vintage Mercedes. We've got our tach, we've got our speedometer, we've got every other gauge to keep track of water and temperatures and oil pressures and fuel and an analog clock. But as we move up, the dash is in really nice shape. There's nothing spilling out. It's in amazing shape. We have round vents, and look at this wood. As we go down, the wood is here. It's here, which can't be said for a lot of Mercedes during this time, and it's in good shape. We have some minor cracking in some of the varnish, but that is it. Very simple controls there. Don't you wish all cars were made with just this many buttons without having 20 different things to click through to get to just what you want? As we move down, you'll see that we have our standard Mercedes gear selector and our controls for the windows. As we look at our center section, carpet is still in there, and it's in really good shape. Got a hairbrush and hair and sunglasses and a spoon, I guess the essential things you need to keep in your Mercedes. But we look at our armrest, and it's in a really, really nice shape. The leather has you can see a little bit of stuff going on in there, but nothing is cracked, nothing is damaged. It just needs probably a good cleaning. And yes, this is the era of tan, a little more tan. So we're gray in today's time, and in the 80s it was tan. But look at all this leather. It is in really good condition. There's no marks, there's no rips, no tears. Everything is in fabulous condition. Look at the map holder there. It's in really, really good shape. Even the leather in our kick plate is not torn up or damaged. And while that looks like it could be a leaking heater core, it is not. I know so many cars have that spot back there that loves to drip on you when your heater core goes out, but no, that's just an old stain that's back there. But it is keeping the carpet beneath it clean. I can't show too much of our back seat because he has some boxes in here because he's collected a few items that he wanted to share with the Wizard. But if we look at our back shelf, you'll see that it does have the first aid kit back there, and that back shelf isn't looking in good shape. So many times that those get sun bleached and just fade away, and just the sun is brutal on carpet. So go to our headliner, it's taut, it is not sagging, there's no problems. There you go, that's the smallest itsy bitsyest problem. I think it could probably just be cleaned off, and that is over the moonroof. There's your steering wheel. Nothing fancy going on. Just got the horn behind that lovely Mercedes emblem back there, but that's it. There's nothing else going on. Enough of this interior talk. Let's get this on the lift and see what's going on the underneath.
So no car is perfect, and although the engine runs great and drives great and everything, we're going to go underneath and see how quickly you find one of these cars and it just keeps piling up. Each time I mention something, we're adding what, $100, $200, $300. Ping, cha-ching, cha-ching, it keeps adding. So let's get started. It's got an oil leak coming up either through the front main seal or it could be the vacuum pump up above. Junior Mint's got it cleaned off and put some trace powder to see where exactly it's coming from. We're still determining that. Upper and lower control arm bushings on this are completely shot. We can tell by the wheels are kind of canted inward on both front wheels. So we're gonna have to go through and do all of those. The brakes are actually okay, but the shocks are blown, which is not surprising. You can see right here on the shock, I just peel the grease off. The shock is blown out. Tie rod ends look in good shape, like they've been replaced not too long in the past, but we can see our steering gearbox is leaking. One common issue on these when they get age, the motor mounts are fully collapsed. The shock absorber, yes, it has an engine shock absorber, is blown out. That absorbs vibrations. Let's check the other side. There's the other side, shock absorber, and the engine mount is also collapsed right there. Here we have some seepage going on. It's the lower oil pan. It's kind of just gunky all around the whole thing. It needs to be dropped. It's not a big job, luckily, but it does need to be done. It's kind of blowing oil all the way back here. Transmission pan is leaking. It probably needs to be serviced. And while we do that, we'll take care of this leak, put a new filter, a new gasket.
Wow, that flex disc looks new.
It does, it's a good shape, but the transmission mount below it is completely destroyed. It's all cracked and collapsed, so that's not good either. We'll move this drive shaft. You'll see the center support is pretty much shot. The rubber is completely collapsed. The bearing is probably on its way out as well. U-joint's okay. Here's our flex disc in the back, and it doesn't appear to be cracked or any issues either. It appears to be okay for now. No leaks from our input or output shafts on the differential. We do see the boots starting to show age. Grease is kind of just soaking through the rubber itself. Still pliable and still usable. These brake lines, when I move them, I can kind of very lightly hear it crunching. These are going to need to be replaced. They're very, very old. They're original. Looks like somebody has serviced in the past or replaced the CV axles in the back. Rockford Constant Velocity. The brakes look nice and thick in the back. Shocks they're not blown. That's good. But we can see grease is starting to ooze through the boots from age. And old brake hoses. And that's not the full gist of everything. There's even more on top of that. As you can see, it's adding up really fast. Every little thing, a couple $100 here, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. It adds up really, really fast on these older cars. And then you get a whole bill like 4 or 5 grand. They're like, why is it so high? It adds up. There's so much to do. Let's get this thing back on the ground. So kind of play the game. Of all the things I just listed, I'll choose 4, and then I'll let you guys in the comments let us know which ones would you start with. There were blown out shocks, there were engine mounts that were crushed, brake hoses that were getting brittle and weak, and suspension bushings that are very, very shot. So let us know in the comments, what would you start with? Definitely for safety reasons, I would do the brake hoses and all suspension bushings because the wheels are like this in the front. They're caved in kind of a look. For safety. It's kind of annoying that the engine shakes because of the motor mounts are shot, but it's not going to cause them to careen into a telephone pole. And the shocks are blown, and they're not completely blown, they're just starting to leak. They still absorb shock. They could go kind of a middle of the road thing. At the next trip they could be replaced. But this time around we definitely need to look in suspension, bushings, and all those brake hoses. Because if they sort of split or break and you lose brake pressure, it could be very dangerous. We've had a few of these in the shop in the past. They're always fun to work on. I really enjoy these 123 chassis. They're really cool. They can be very expensive to catch up with years of not necessarily neglect or anything, but just maintenance and repairs that may have been forgotten, or there was no symptom, so it was never addressed. It can tally up really, really fast on these. The parts on these are not going to be cheap like a Chevy Cavalier or something. They're going to be Mercedes-Benz prices. But if you get them all fixed and you put the money into it, this will still be on the road long after that Ford Fusion you're looking at right now, brand new on the lot. This will still be running. Luckily, the customer, like I mentioned in the beginning of this video, fully understands. They know what they're getting into, and they are financially prepared to buckle down and get this done. It'll be done in phases. Like I said, they'll bring it back in multiple trips, and by the end, they'll have a nicely sorted 123 300D. Luckily, these things were used and sold all over the world. There were millions upon millions of these sold. From the 70s to the 80s, there were so many of them all over the place. There are parts, parts, and parts, and parts galore. It is not rare or hard to find parts for these. Unlike the Dodge Challenger behind me, where there were multiple gaskets we couldn't get. There's a lot of parts on there that Chrysler has just stopped making. I don't know why. I'm not sure what's going on with that, but I can find parts for this a lot easier. Strange, isn't it? So as this car comes in on a second trip and a third trip, we might get another video out of this showing you where we're at and some of the other issues we might have run into. The list that I showed you today is probably only half of really what everything that it needs. There's so much. It could take, this video could be an hour or hour and a half long if I went through every little thing on this. But definitely check into the vacuum leaks because the doors, the door locks are vacuum operated. The engine shutoff, when you turn the key off, is vacuum operated. There's lots of vacuum stuff on these cars that needs to be addressed. A vacuum leak can cause any or all those things to stop working. So if you're curious what kind of tools we're going to use to work on this 300D or any other car in the shop, check our Amazon affiliates link in the description below. We get a small cut if you purchase anything. We really appreciate it. Make sure to hit the subscribe button because there's many more cool Wizard videos to come. Thanks for watching.